Okay, let's jump right in. We're doing a deep dive today into Matthew chapter 8.
Yeah, this chapter hits the ground running. Jesus has just come down from the mountainside after that big teaching block.
The Sermon on the Mount, yeah. And now it's like Matthew wants to show us immediately what that authority looks like in practice.
Exactly. It's action-packed.
Yeah.
We see power over sickness, spirits, even nature. Our goal today is really to unpack these specific stories, see how people reacted, and pull out the key takeaways.
Right, and it starts straight away. Huge crowds are following him down the mountain, then this figure steps out.
A man with leprosy. And you have to remember what that meant. It wasn't just a disease, it was total isolation, socially, religiously, an outcast.
But he approaches Jesus. He kneels down.
And listen to what he says. Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. There's no doubt in his mind that Jesus can do it. The only question is willingness. That's profound faith right there.
And Jesus' reaction is just, wow. He reaches out his hand, he touches the man.
Which was completely forbidden. Touching someone with leprosy would make you unclean according to the law.
But Jesus does it anyway. That touch itself is a statement.
Absolutely. It's compassion breaking through barriers. And then he says, I am willing. Be clean.
And the text says?
Immediately. He was cured immediately. Instant restoration. Not just the skin, but potentially his whole life back.
But then Jesus gives him this specific instruction.
Right. See that you don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them.
So keep it quiet for now, but follow the official procedure. Why? Tell the priest.
Well, first, it's about reintegration. The priest had to declare someone clean for them to re-enter society. But second, it puts the evidence right in front of the religious authorities. It's a testimony to them of this power at work.
Okay, that makes sense. So from this incredibly personal healing, the scene shifts.
Yeah, we move to Capernaum, and the next encounter is also pretty unexpected. A centurion approaches Jesus.
A Roman soldier, an officer, a Gentile. Not exactly the usual crowd.
Definitely not. And he's not asking for himself. He's concerned about his servant, who he says is back home, paralyzed and in terrible suffering.
And Jesus just says, I will go and heal him. No hesitation about going into a Gentile's house, which again was a boundary.
But the centurion stops him. This is the amazing part. He says, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then he says, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. He gets it. He understands authority.
He explains it using his own experience, doesn't he?
He does. He says basically, look, I'm a man under authority and I have soldiers under me. I tell one, go, he goes. Another, come, he comes. I tell my servant, do this, he does it. He sees Jesus operating with that same kind of absolute inherent authority. Just speak the word.
And how does Jesus react to that?
The text says he was astonished. Marveled, really. Think about it. That Jesus is astonished by this Gentile soldier's faith.
He says it explicitly, right?
Yes. I tell you the truth, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. That's a huge statement. This outsider gets it more than many insiders.
And then he connects it to the bigger picture, the kingdom of heaven.
He does. He talks about how many will come from the east and the west, Gentiles, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Inclusion based on faith.
But there's a warning, too.
A stark one. But the subjects of the kingdom, meaning those who thought they had an automatic right, will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Faith, not heritage, is the key.
So what happens to the servant?
Jesus tells the centurion, go. It will be done just as you believed it would. And the text confirms his servant was healed at that very hour. Distance was no barrier to Jesus' word and the centurion's faith.
Incredible. Okay, so next, the setting changes again. More intimate this time.
We're in Peter's house. Jesus goes in and sees Peter's mother-in-law. She's sick.
Lying in bed with a fever. Simple description.
And a simple action from Jesus. He touched her hand and the fever left her. Again, that immediate physical connection and healing.
And her response.
Also immediate. She got up and began to wait on him. Fully restored, back to serving. No recovery period needed.
So the day continues. What happens as evening approaches?
Word must have spread. People start bringing the sick, and significantly many who were demon-possessed him.
Then how does he handle this?
With authority. He drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the sick. Just his word was enough to command spirits and cure illnesses.
And Matthew sees a pattern here, right? He connects it back.
Yes, he explicitly links all these healings The leper, the servant, Peter's mother-in-law, all the sick and demon-possessed, to a prophecy from Isaiah.
Which one?
He took up our infirmities and carried our diseases. Matthew wants us to see these aren't just random miracles. They are the fulfillment of God's promises about the Messiah bearing our burdens.
So this chapter is just layering example after example of his authority.
Exactly. Over disease, distance, demons, fevers. It's a powerful demonstration.
Okay, so with all this happening, crowds are obviously growing, and Jesus makes a decision.
He sees the crowd and tells his disciples, let's cross to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. Seems like a way to maybe get some space or perhaps move to the next phase.
But before they can leave, a couple of people approach him wanting to join.
Yes, and these interactions really test the idea of discipleship. They show the cost.
The first is a teacher of the law, someone educated, respected.
And he makes a big declaration, teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. Sounds good, right? Full commitment.
But Jesus' response is bracing.
It is. Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head.
Oof. So following me means potential homelessness, instability.
Pretty much. He's saying, don't follow me expecting comfort or security. That's not what this path is about. It's a radical call.
Then another person, described as another disciple, comes up.
And this one seems more reasonable. Lord, first let me go and bury my father. In that culture, burying your father was a sacred duty, a primary obligation.
Makes sense. You'd expect Jesus to say, okay, go, then come back.
But he doesn't. His response is even more challenging than the first one. Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead.
Wow. That sounds incredibly harsh, like disregard your family.
It's intentionally stark. It's
Yeah.
probably not meant literally as disrespecting the dead father, but metaphorically. Let those who are spiritually dead worry about the affairs of the physically dead.
So the urgency of following him, of kingdom business, overrides even the most important cultural or familial ties.
But that seems to be the point. The call is immediate, absolute. It demands first priority. These aren't easy sayings. They're meant to filter out casual interest.
Definitely filters. Okay, so after setting these high bars for following, Jesus gets into the boat. His disciples go with him.
And they set off across the lake.
But then,
Trouble.
big trouble.
Without warning, a furious storm came up on the lake. The Sea of Galilee is known for these sudden violent storms. Waves are crashing over the boat. It's serious danger.
Experienced fishermen are on board and they are panicking. But where's Jesus in all this?
Sleeping. Sound asleep through the chaos.
How? I mean, how?
It's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Total peace, maybe utter exhaustion, but definitely a contrast to the disciples' terror.
They wake him up, obviously frantic. Lord, save us. We're going to drown.
And his first response isn't to calm the storm. It's a question to them.
Right. You have little faith. Why are you so afraid? He points to their fear being rooted in a lack of faith.
Even with him right there in the boat, their fear overwhelmed their faith in who he was. It makes you think, doesn't it? When we face storms, is our fear because the storm is big or because we forget who's with us?
Good question. So then he deals with the storm.
Yes. He got up and rebuked the winds and the waves. He speaks to the storm like it's a disobedient child.
And the result?
It was completely calm, instantly. Total peace restored.
The disciples' reaction changes then, from fear to...
Awe. Astonishment. They ask each other, what kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him. They've just seen his authority extend over the very forces of nature.
So they finally get to the other side, the region of the Gadarenes, and the welcome party is intense.
Understatement. As soon as they land, they're met by two demon-possessed men coming from the tombs.
And these aren't just troubled individuals. The text says they were so violent that no one could pass that way. They were terrifying, living among the dead, completely ruled by these destructive forces.
But these forces immediately recognize Jesus. They cry out, what do you want with us, Son of God?
They know who he is.
They absolutely do, and they seem to know their time is limited. Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time? They acknowledge his authority and a future judgment.
Okay, so there happens to be a large herd of pigs nearby.
Yes, some distance away, the text says. And the demons make a request. Strange one.
They beg him, if you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs. They know they have to leave the men, but they want to go somewhere.
And Jesus' response is incredibly brief. Just one word.
Go.
That's it. And the demons obey. They leave the men and enter the pigs.
And what happens to the pigs?
Chaos. The whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and died in the water. A dramatic, very visual end for the pigs, and maybe a demonstration of the self-destructive nature of these forces.
So the men who were tending the pigs saw all of this unfold. The violent men suddenly calm, the entire herd wiped out. What do they do?
They run. They head straight into the town and tell everyone what happened, everything, including what happened to the demon-possessed men.
You'd think the townspeople would be amazed, relieved, grateful that these dangerous men were now free and the road was safe again.
That's what you might expect. But their reaction is, well, different. The whole town went out to meet Jesus.
Okay, maybe to thank him.
No. And when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region.
They asked him to leave after he performed this incredible deliverance.
Yes. They saw the power, they saw the restored men, but they asked him to go away.
Why? Was it just the economic loss of the pigs? That was someone's livelihood gone?
That can certainly be part of it. Losing a large herd of pigs is a significant financial hit. But maybe it was more than that. Maybe the sheer power he displayed was too disruptive, too frightening.
Like his presence fundamentally challenged their world, and they preferred the devil they knew, even violent demoniacs, to this unpredictable, powerful force.
It's a possibility, isn't it? Sometimes radical change, even for the good, is deeply unsettling. They chose the familiar, even if it was broken, over the unknown power that Jesus represented.
So this chapter, Matthew 8, it's just packed. Healing, authority over distance, spirits, nature, challenging calls to discipleship.
An incredible range. And the responses are just as varied. You've got profound faith like the leper and the centurion. You have the disciples moving from fear to awe. You have potential followers counting the cost.
And then you have outright rejection, like the townspeople asking Jesus to leave. They saw the power, but they didn't want it near them.
It really covers the spectrum of how people react when confronted with the reality of Jesus' power and presence. It wasn't universally welcomed, even when it brought healing and freedom.
So for you listening, Matthew 8 really puts it all out there. Jesus' authority is undeniable, but how people respond is complex. Faith is commended, commitment is demanded, and sometimes even witnessing incredible power leads to fear and rejection.
And maybe that final story, the Gadarenes asking Jesus to leave, leaves us with a really pointed question to think about. What happens when witnessing something undeniably powerful, something truly transformative, actually makes people uncomfortable? What does it mean when the cost of change, or maybe just the sheer otherness of divine power, leads people to choose their familiar reality, losses and all, over engaging with that power? It pushes us to consider what we truly value when faced with something that could change everything.